You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I'm going to address I don't know if it's the elephant in the room. It's the non-COVID in the room. How about that? I have a cold. It is not a serious infection. I know what I sound like, and it's not great. I just want that out there right now. I have a bad cold, and it is a weird thing because every time I tell someone that, they're like, how did you get a cold? Like, you've been walking around with a mask. You haven't been going anywhere. But of course, I've been going places. I have to get food. And, you go and, I don't know, put gas in your car. You do things.
Yeah, the germs are going to find you.
Somehow, a cold found me. Although I feel like it's been a very long time since I've had a cold.
Yeah, I've had 0 colds this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. I've had 0 colds this year for the first time in my life. I always get colds every fall.
I feel like you've had Andrew, you've had a lot of respiratory issues at one time.
Well, I had the pre-COVID COVID.
Yeah.
I was laid up for the first 2 months of the year, and whatever that special treat of a illness was. And I've had like allergy stuff throughout the year. Like allergies, I think, have been particularly bad for me this year, but no colds.
Yeah, it's just not, I don't want to like play that game with people. We're all comparing about like how awesome's your 2020 been, but
No one's playing how awesome has your 2020 been.
No, Jeff Bezos might be.
Jeff Bezos is the only one.
He's the only one who is doing this right now. But when the cold was like really raging yesterday, and I'm having to get my my steps in for my foot, which is a saga that has been ongoing on this podcast since August. It just wasn't. It was like a moment in time where I went, "Wow, this is not great. I'm limping with my cold, and I'm not feeling 110 here."
Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
And it's supposed to be, as it's called, the most wonderful time of the year. So I'm very resentful too about that.
Well, I hope that at least it like maybe will leave your system by next week, and you can have a few days of like actual break. Like,
I feel like that's on the way. I feel like I'm a healthy person, despite my obvious appearances on this podcast or the contrary. But I feel like this is just another one of those, banana peels on the road of 2020.
Aww.
I'm sorry. That's
I always tell this story, but like I even told it to Andrea Warner like last week. But when we lived in Maine, there was a story about a guy who had spent 30 years living in the woods. And like he at age 19 just decided for unknown reasons, even to himself, just to steal his brother's car, drive it into the woods as far as possible, and then start walking. And then he just stayed there for 30 years. And he survived by like stealing stuff from people's cabins and just had no human contact. And it's just like, it's a long convoluted story, but he was known as the North Pond Hermit when he was finally caught. At age 50, he walked out of the woods. And basically, like in Maine, the winters are like in Quebec, like they're harsh. It snows a lot. It's freezing. And he would sleep during the day and walk around his like campsite at night, just constantly pace to ward off frostbite and hypothermia. And he managed to survive like 30 winters like that. And he never got sick once. And he said it was because like just no human contact.
Yeah. Well, we're learning that. Haven't we learned that through this pandemic, of course? Yeah. It's all the human contact. So what you're saying is if you want to avoid anything, just get that out in the woods. Just hermit it up. Well, I suppose in a way we're supposed to be doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I honestly cannot imagine going into the woods and just deciding that's like your new existence for 30 years and never coming back out And he only came back out because he got caught, right? Like he didn't willfully.
Well, yeah, because we had actually, when we were there, we met people who like owned a cabin that he stole from. And they were talking about how upsetting it is to just have someone go in and just steal like one or two items from your cabin. And so like it's enough to know that someone has been there and something has been taken, but you can't figure out what it is exactly right away. And just to have that happen to you for 30 years, like they started putting a sign outside their door that said, just tell us what you want, we'll leave it outside. But like he never did that. And he would just, keep coming and stealing like bologna out of their refrigerator.
While they were there or,
or
sleeping or something?
No, well, it was a cabin. So like they would only go kind of like
okay, on the weekend. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it sounds kind of benign, but I suppose it's not my things being stolen, so I understand. It's wild.
I think it's just very like unsettling to know that someone was like in your space while you weren't there.
Oh yeah, no, that's awful.
That's deeply creepy. Like there's a whole subreddit, I think, category, or at least there's a whole like sort of true crime thread in various different places of like people who had like others secretly living in their home while they also live there, like secret
like under the stairs type stuff.
Secret people in like the attic, or secret people in a hidden passage in a wall, and like true, like
I've seen those
stuff.
movies.
It's very creepy.
Well, Parasite type situation.
Yeah, like just it's so creepy. And like they did like a hidden video camera on like I was listening to one story at one point. I think it was on the podcast Criminal, and Phoebe Judge was interviewing someone about her experience. It had been her apartment, and when the person was found, he like basically like accordion style unfolded out of the ceiling, but he was so thin that like it was just like he was just like he looked like a spider with only 4 legs, like it was just wild and deeply unsettling.
A good nightmare for everyone tonight.
Such a nightmare. Honestly, well, it's one of the, it's like, I think, well, okay, so that I don't like camping because I feel I'm going to get murdered because I watched a lot of America's Most Wanted as a child.
And because camping is just lousy, but yes, go on.
Yeah, well, there's that too. But like everyone who like gets released, or like everyone who breaks out of prison goes to a campground and like murders everyone. That's what I thought camping was as a child.
Did you camp near prisons or something? Because they're not like everywhere.
It's weird, but there were a lot of like America's Most Wanted stories about like people getting anyway. So, but I also like I haven't lived. I guess like we moved into an apartment when I was pretty young, when I was like 11. So I was very used to like very tightly, tight quarters, right? And then when I ended up living in a house like several years later, like in my, I don't know, I guess just like my early 20s, I was living with like some friends in a house, and it was so disturbing to think that like you just had no idea if somebody else could like creep into your house and just like be in a room that like you're not checking. And like, anyway, I found it all extremely distressing. So I'm not very comfortable in a lot of houses
houses are definitely more vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think you do feel a certain comfort in an apartment building.
I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, I like my house is very small, and I can sort of, like you can hear anything that's happening in any of the rooms at any given time. Like, and sort of like anything beyond that, like if I had another floor or, like other wings in a house, like that, I would find that a little scary, like I just don't like that. I like having like enough space that I'm using all the spaces most of the time. And so I know what's going on everywhere.
Well, we had a squirrel infestation here.
I remember that.
And they were running in the walls, right?
Yeah.
And the dogs would chase around the house because they could hear them going through the walls and up into the ceiling.
Yeah.
And wow, there are a few things that are more creepy than that. You can just
so chilling. Your
eyes are just following over the ceiling. You can hear where they're running, and then when you get the exterminators there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they've started a family." A family?
Family. Oh no, that's not what you want to hear. No.
No, they were. To comfort everyone, it was a humane situation. Great. It's actually kind of an interesting thing. What they do is they put a trap in, that you can only go out. You can't come back in.
Oh.
So the mother goes out, and then you put it on right on the roof where she can see the trap. So she calls to her babies, and they come out through that hole.
Oh.
But they can't get back in again.
That's fascinating.
Huh.
That's fascinating. AG, you had a bat in your house, right?
Twice. Yeah.
Twice. I didn't know Vancouver really had a lot of bats.
I didn't know that either. Until my husband Joe, like he saw this, like he thought it was like a dust bunny or something, like on the curtain, just hanging on the curtain in the middle of the day.
Oh.
He's like, took a closer look, and he's like, is there a mouse like hanging halfway up our curtain? And then was like, oh my God, no, it's a bat. And then, thankfully for him, like he got a pot and sort of like slowly put the bat into a pot and put the lid on it. And while he was carrying it outside to release it, you could see its little claws clinging over the side of the pot. And then he just basically opened the door and just like kind of threw it into the air. And
wow.
Yeah.
Was it during the day or at night?
During the day.
Wow.
But yeah, that was the first time I realized Vancouver had bats.
Wow.
I don't see them very often. I know there's like, when you're camping, you see them, but.
We have no idea how they got in, if it flew down the chimney or. I don't know.
Wow. I mean,
places. We went places.
We did. But the thing that it all comes back to is that we all like certain kinds of houses, and we all feel safe in certain kinds of houses. And you know what? So do these movies. These movies represent certain kinds of houses and certain kinds of people, and man, it's a journey, but I'm so happy to be here with both of you. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And boy, do we have a treat for all of you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy, yeah. This is our annual gift to you, the listener. If you're still here with us, year 6, we're impressed.
Yeah. But do you remember just last year we were at the Rio Theater and
we sure
you were doing it live on stage and there were people in the audience and
I do.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, and I went to a cookie exchange after, and there were people
and so it was followed by a screening of Love Actually, which I think you and I just walked out and left after we taped our podcast.
I stayed.
Yeah, I know you stayed.
But I was like, I don't need to. No, thank you.
You didn't know next year you would have to,
I know.
though, did you?
This is honestly one of the great pleasures of my life in 2020, which has held seldom pleasures, I will say, is Andrea Gin having to talk about Love Actually and the holiday with us for the first time
mad about
in 6 years. I love
6 years of having to listen to us. And you've never watched either.
No, never. Like I watched them for the the first time around when they came out, probably, but never since. Avoided like the plague.
Good. Yeah.
So good. Well, I mean, so I didn't even write down backgrounds or synopses for us.
If you don't know what the holiday is in Love Actually by now, well, first of all, you're not obviously into seasonal movies. And secondly, you have not been listening to this podcast.
So just so people know, the holiday is streaming on Netflix right now in Canada.
Yeah,
Love Actually
is on Crave.
On Crave. Is it?
Yeah.
And Prime. Amazon.
Crave and Prime, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, have a party with both of those. And I mean, honestly, like if this is your first year discovering the holiday, there are a number of people who are discovering it with you.
This is all of a sudden. We've always discussed Nancy Meyers on this podcast off and on and done some of her movies, but this December, for some reason, the study of Nancy Meyers has really taken off. It is quite something. There are a number of major projects going on right now.
Yeah, this is...
What do you mean?
Well, okay. So it's Nancy Meyers Week at Vulture. And that's like big features like happening and like and ended up being like some hotly contested stuff. Like Nancy Meyer's daughter came for one of the writer who's like instigating the whole week and like accused her of reducing Nancy's films to and basically like contributing to sort of the sexist dismissal of Nancy Meyer's films. Whereas I do not believe this is not what Rachel Handler is doing. Rachel Handler loves Nancy Meyer's films and she is applying a critical lens to all of them. But anyway,
there is also, just to give you a heads up on what I am going to pick for the thing that I'm liking so much right now, a whole podcast that just came out called The Holiday Season, and it is only about the holiday. It's by Sam Clements and Louise Owen, and it just looks into the making of this 2006 Christmas classic. Now, that's not my words. I know that you would say that was my words, but those are their words. There are 4 episodes as of our taping, and I could not be more thrilled than to know that this thing exists.
I also found out just before we started this recording from, friend of the podcast, Sarah Geisler, who's also one of our guests. I believe it was for year 4. She joined us for that year for The Holiday versus Love Actually. Guy Branum watched The Holiday for the first time this year and live tweeted his experience. And that apparently is a real treat for everyone. I have not seen that yet because I only found out about it, but I can't wait. Yeah, people are really, really ready for the holiday this year in a way that I think is pandemic specific. I think partly it's because Love Actually, like people get like it gets a bigger stink on it every year.
Every year.
And the holiday gets like a shinier sheen to it every year.
Yeah, it gets a bigger pass.
It sure does. Yeah.
Love Actually is just getting a lesser and lesser of a pass.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that's even.
Would you say with yourself as a Love Actually supporter?
I mean, we all know that I have loved Love Actually, and I still do enjoy it personally more than I enjoy The Holiday. But I used to really hate The Holiday, and I no longer really hate The Holiday. I really strongly dislike half of The Holiday, and I have quite a lot of fondness now for the other half of The Holiday. And so my position has definitely changed quite a bit. That said, watching Love Actually this year, did I still cry at a lot of the same moments? Sure did. Did I still make fun of a lot of the same moments? Sure did. Am I still hyper aware of aspects of how gross it is that I wasn't aware of as a teenager? When you really just really have to sort of confront its grossness more and more so every year. I think I reached that point a number of years ago, but I don't really want to talk about what I thought of it. I want to get to what you thought of it, but I will say I had a big realization last year while watching it at the Rio after we did our recording, and I wrote it down, and I have saved this note till this particular moment.
Okay.
And it was such a I can't believe I hadn't really, really totally fully called this before, because I'm sure other people have, but I realized while I was watching it last year that one of the reasons I think this movie has gotten a pass on so many levels for so long is because almost every instance of sexual contact is a woman initiating that sexual contact. Maybe men want that sexual contact. Maybe men are, any sort of consensual sexual act in this film, be it a kiss or actual more or whatever. Every consensual sexual act in this film is a woman initiating it. And I think that made it a very safe film in a lot of ways for a lot of women who are my age and older, and probably 10 years younger, coming up and watching films, because it plays into a lot of ideas where men can be horny but not threatening, except in this obviously the US president, and Americans just come off super bad in this film anyways. That was
and slutty.
Well, but slutty is coded as bad, for 2003,
saying,
it's just they're Americans are just jokes to the British in this film, which I think everyone sort of like, to a certain extent, when you're not American, that's an appealingly low fruit to sort of swing at. But just like, yeah, it's like most of the men in this film are completely non-threatening sexually. They just want. And it's the women who decide whether they want to like reciprocate and whether they want it themselves.
Counterpoint to this,
Sure.
just curious. This was written by a man.
Oh, 100%.
So there is a man behind thinking.
But that's what I'm thinking. It's like
that guy is just so hot that this woman cannot help herself. She's going to have to throw herself at her stuffy Alan Rickman boss, and that is the dream of some guy because there was nothing.
But that's the thing. Like I think that's what he's doing. Like I think he is evil. Like I think Richard Curtis is actually evil, and like kind of Machiavellian in like what he sets up.
Yeah, because like I think by the same token, it's all like a male fantasy about like how women react to being stalked and harassed at work and put into these situations. Like, oh, like they're happy about it. They welcome it. They will kiss me if I go over to their house and, declare my love for them and tell them to lie to their husband who's just sitting upstairs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's all of it is just like a creepy male fantasy.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like there it's extra sinister because it makes it really does prey upon this idea of like pacifying women with this idea that they are the ones who are initiating it.
Yes,
but men are sort of like laying this weird trap. and it's
in some cases they don't need to. They just need to be someone's boss.
They just need to be affable. They just need to be like bumbling. They just need to be awkward. Like they just need to blink a lot. They need to blink a lot. They need to, just spend their days like writing on typewriters. Like it's, yeah. So anyways, I think like this has been like very interesting for me to think about, and to think about sort of the, the types of situations that I really did think were romantic and or personally sexually compelling, like between the ages of like, 83 and like 2006 before I fully sort of really had my eyes open to like the gross lessons that I had internalized for so long.
Wow, that's quite an endorsement for Love Actually there. Do continue.
Still love it on a lot of levels. Like that's like the worst part is that.
Okay, so the main thing we need to we have identified our camps.
Yes.
But AG has not, and
I want to know all your thoughts about both.
It is time for you to take a side.
Woo!
Well, okay, I'll start with Love Actually, and I am just going to say off the top that it is one of my least favorite films that has ever been filmed, that has ever been committed to films.
Okay, that's
wow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
It's I feel very like perturbed about having to watch it again for this podcast because I wanted to leave it behind. and
you had never seen it before.
No, I saw it in like the early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, not since then because I hated it right from the start. Like I've had no personal arc with this movie where it's like I loved it and now I realize it's problematic. I've always felt rage when I've seen this movie.
I feel like with I agree. The first time I saw it, I remember like leaving the theater going, well, that sucked. And everyone going, oh my God. And thinking, is this a Twilight Zone episode where I'm the only person with a different language?
I'm curious, AG, is there any storyline in the film, in Love Actually, that you find interesting or that you have any kind of softness for?
No.
Okay.
So like, I mean, even Laura Linney's storyline is
What's the point of that? What is the point?
Yeah, like what is the lesson from it? It's just like, oh, if you have, if you're dealing with family issues that you have to like tell somebody about, they won't want to date you anymore. Like your dating life is over.
Yeah, like honestly, it's like one of those things where if she had said, I have this really important situation, could you imagine in another movie? He'd be like, I'll drive you. I'll wait in the car.
I know.
You go
Like,
and talk to him, and then we'll see what time it is.
Why? Because like she called her brother, or took a call from her brother in the middle of like making out with him. Like that was the end of their relationship. Done. Finito. Like,
Again,
well, I don't even like. I don't understand that.
Saying, if you want to have a relationship, you've got to like jettison the family. Just start over. You have no connections. Just move on. That is his message in this movie.
Yeah, and I feel like, like the Colin Firth storyline enrages me because, like, I feel, well, like, there's obvious problems with it because he's her boss, but also, like, I think the depiction of her family is super racist. Like,
Yep.
the way, like, when they go back to Portugal and the family's like,
they live in Little Portugal in Marseille. Apparently, there's a whole neighborhood of Marseille called Little Portugal. That's what they're not even in Portugal.
Okay.
Does anyone know how to say rebound in Portuguese?
But like just all that stuff about like my dad's gonna sell, one of his daughter. Yeah. It's that part was super racist. I find like even what's supposed to be cute, like the Liam Neeson child storyline, is just like he's training his son that it's like okay to be a stalker and chase someone to the airport, and she will be grateful to you and come and give you a hug. Like he's teaching that to a 8-year-old boy. And he's
meanwhile, would we not want to discuss his trauma from losing his mother? Maybe that might be something too. Like maybe
that's obviously why he's like in his room all the time and sad.
No. It's that he's 10 and he's in love, AG. Oh my God. No,
that's what the movie's about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like that's not even like the bottom of the barrel is the whole like Collins storyline, which is just laughably, insanely, horribly terrible.
Yeah.
Like I can't even believe like it's not funny in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
And what is the satisfaction somebody gets every year of seeing Emma Thompson fall apart, listening to Joni Mitchell, and have to come down with some dignity and spend the evening with her children when her heart is broken?
Well, I will answer that because I do get satisfaction out of that. It's not that I want to see people's hearts broken, but we have talked about this a lot. I think Christmas is a deeply complicated time full of like sad stories and happy stories. And I think that Emma Thompson does such an amazing job. And I feel like if you're going to tell like a collection of stories around love, they can't all be happy. And so I appreciate like that this story is so deeply heartbreaking. And I think it's actually one of the reasons the film has sort of the sizable audience that it does, is because it has like this sort of like gravitas performance in the middle of it that I think it gives it a lot of, it helps with all the passes for all the really terrible storylines.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was reading this article about how like the more lines that female characters have in this movie, the sadder their lives are. And
wow, I hadn't even thought of that. It's so true, though. Oh my gosh.
Like Emma Thompson and Laura Linney talk the most in the movie, and they are like kind of living out tragic lives.
Yeah.
For family, also, just so we recognize these are women that are actually devoted to their families, and they are punished for it.
Yep.
Yeah, and then like the secretary to the prime minister who gets fired because she's getting sexually harassed by
the American
president.
Yep.
Yeah, like she literally in one scene, like her line is to just giggle as he walks by.
Yeah.
And asks how she's doing or whatever. She can't even muster up words.
After the prime minister harasses her by asking about her love life in a professional setting. So
yes.
Yeah. So no, you're right. I keep missing the charms of this movie all of the time.
But like even like Alan Rickman,
constant fat shaming, constant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Alan Rickman. Yes.
That. Well, the fat shaming is just, it's baffling. Like I don't. But like Alan Rickman, like I don't even understand what he does. He doesn't like, what is his job? He doesn't do anything throughout the movie. And he kicks off the movie by like telling Laura Linney that it's time that she made a move on her coworker.
Yeah.
Well, and this is like one of the things that I find deeply, I mean, I obviously find this film deeply flawed, even though I do have all of this affection for it, and I give it all kinds of grace that I wouldn't give to certain, like to other films. Because it still hits me in some of my like sentimental feelings. But I don't mind picking apart things that I love, and I still have the love for them in certain other. Anyway, you know that I like this. I like to sort of rip everything apart. But one of the things I don't get for the Alan Rickman character is how he can, in any way, like be invested in one of his employees' love lives to the extent that he has this conversation with her, which obviously is deeply inappropriate, and then does this to his wife. Like it's very incongruous. And I don't think it's like good character development. Like the fact that this movie originally was 14 storylines and they move it down to 10. And so you lose like 40 minutes, but the film is still almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's long.
It's so
wildly
long.
It's so long. I feel like I lived these lives.
I mean, the holiday's so long too, though, guys. Like, it's
but that was good. That's
but
quality.
even like the part,
No, I could have edited down the holiday too. I know. I do know.
But even the sort of innocuous part of like the aging pop star guy,
Bill Nighy, yeah.
And I know like his Christmas song is supposed to be corny and it's supposed to suck, but I hate having to listen to it throughout the entire movie. I hate the song. I hate his singing. I know he's supposed to be bad, but I don't want to hear it.
Britney Spears joke. I mean,
I don't want to hear it 15 times.
She was a child when he was making that joke.
Yeah, I mean, she was over 20 at that joke, but I take your meaning. I understand completely. Bill Nighy he's a very charming actor, though. I have to I still enjoy this particular performance, even though the character is like icky and awful because again, like we've sort of grown up with this like rock star bad boy, you know, he describes himself constantly as like a washed up ex-heroin addict. And then we see this sort of moment of like, you know, where this moment of vulnerability at the end wherein he like fat shames his manager, but also says like that his manager's like the love of his life. And I think like this moment, even though it's not great, it's a moment that still makes me tear up actually every single time because I think the manager is so good. Like his performance is so good at receiving that particular thing like from him. And I think about, I don't know, it gets me. I know.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you something though? This year I figured out a way to enjoy the show more, and I just watched. No, I just watched it without volume.
So you didn't even.
I just muted it.
You muted it. What, did you have subtitles on?
Nope, I didn't need them.
Wow. I at least listened. I watched The Holiday with sound.
I'm telling you, some of the sets are really nice, and you know, it's very attractive people in Love Actually for sure. I know what's going on, and I just more focused on beautiful apartments, and you know, I really like Liam Neeson's apartment a lot, and so I just
it's great.
Looked around at all the pictures and the recording equipment, and it's kind of funny because you said it was 2003, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny to see a stereo and different, you know, systems like that.
Keira Knightley's hat,
you don't, and you know, the big pivotal scene with the signs, you know what you don't need? Volume. You read those.
You sure don't. I mean, obviously we remember that we found out Keira Knightley was 17 at the filming of this movie.
There we go.
Which is super gross. Can I share also something that another reason I think Richard Curtis is like trash? So the woman who is Liam Neeson's dead wife, recently deceased wife, she is someone Richard Curtis had a crush on in real life.
And he killed her?
No, no, he just said, can you play this character? No, I don't want you to have any lines. I just want all the prettiest photos of you from your whole life so that you can be this like dead woman. And this was his form of sort of getting the girl. Dark. dark.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. I see now. At least when I defend The Holiday, I'm not trying to suggest I think it's the best film of all time.
I am
But
not
I do
suggesting
not
it's the
find it
best
has
film.
even remotely any of those problems.
Andrea Warner, can you just sort of summarize in a neat package about like the things you love about this film? Because I think I need to hear it again now that I've just recently watched it.
That's fine. That's fair. So I really love the idea that Christmas is like the pressure of Christmas to be this sort of magical time where you do tell people you love them and you do make all of these gestures. And, in the context of 2003, before we sort of like fully understood how problematic a lot of the behavior of this film was, what we were seeing, and what I was seeing, at least the first time I watched it, was just like a bunch of like, obviously like sort of beautiful people who are like, a lot of whom are reasonably funny. There's really great swearing in this movie. Like the swearing is so effective and comedic. And I really gave that like a lot of credit when in 2003, because I just thought like as a writer, like effective swearing is so hard to nail as a comedic device. And a lot of these characters, like I liked the painful stuff that was sort of juxtaposed alongside all of the like gushy pleasant stuff. Because like I'll be honest, I think the first time I saw this, I wasn't necessarily like predisposed to liking romance movies. It took me a long time to come to any kind of like rom-com embracing, and one of my earliest entry points was a film like Love Actually that had all of the darkness as well as all of the fun. And so like the Emma Thompson storyline, like it's deeply devastating, but I thought it was very relatable and very real. And I think the realness of that is so painful. And I thought it continues to sort of like hit me in the gut, like all these years later. Like, I just think it's a flawless scene, and like any film that can give me at least one flawless scene that still has the same gut punch power, almost 20 years later, I'm not like likely to scrap that out of my like go-tos for, traditional weird Christmas viewing.
Fair.
Okay.
I know. I like.
You know what it's like? It's like you had a really bad Christmas where like two members of your family were just awful to each other and started yelling. And every year when you get together, you ask them to recreate it.
No, it's an ongoing catharsis for like, I have had a lot of pretty terrible Christmases, but I've also had a lot of really wonderful Christmases, and I love Christmas. Like, regardless of the bad stuff, I still love Christmas. And like, and I mean, truly profoundly terrible things, life-changing terrible things have happened to me around Christmas, but I still love it. And it's not an easy season. But I think it still carries so much joy for me that like a movie like Love Actually that gives me both a chance to sort of laugh and cry and feel like I have grown as a person. Because I truly know that I have grown as a person since 2003, because this movie can be so terrible. Like my taste in men has improved since 2003. My belief in what like love and equity has changed dramatically. Like, I can come for Richard Curtis now with like quite a strong sort of like hatred. Like, I really do think, he's done a lot of terrible things in the world. I'm probably going to get sued by him one day if I ever have like, enough power myself. But I just, I still love this movie on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this as a person who's like not super invested in Christmas. But, like if you feel kind of passive about Christmas and you watch a movie like this, it kind of makes you think like, this is an indictment of Christmas. This is why Christmas.
That's why you want to avoid it and run away. Yeah.
This is why Christmas needs to be like scaled back to like a Easter type holiday or something. Because it's just an excuse. Like, everybody sees it as an excuse in this movie to behave poorly and to do things they would not normally do. And like, Yeah, Christmas has just become an excuse to be terrible, at least according to the characters in this movie. And yeah, I believe that it's an argument for scaling back Christmas as a holiday.
Wow.
All right, well, let's segue into some pure joy, where in the opposite of the Love Actually, we start with sad people and end with happy people, as opposed to the other weird way that Love Actually works, and all the people get miserable. Let's just talk about the holiday.
Okay, but I just want to say as we bridge, like these are the two whitest movies.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
Yes,
yeah, like
yeah.
I
They
mean,
are, but weirdly enough, like honestly, they're not even the whitest films. Like Christmas in general has been a very overall sort of like white movie, sort of like think about like
but like
Home
Love
Alone
actually
and,
takes place in London.
yeah, I know. I mean, it's 2003. They've got like 2 people of color in the cast. Like it's minimal at best. But like think about like a lot of Christmas classics. Like it has been overwhelmingly dominated by white voices. It's not great.
Agreed.
Yeah, but just like considering these casts are so big too, like it's like they went extra out of their way to not cast any
It's
non-white actors. Yeah,
It's a similar going out of their way of like, you know, setting Friends in New York and it being like almost like 100% white for like 10 years. You have to be like willfully white supremacist at that point. Anyway, but yes, how did you feel about the holiday?
you know what? I have less feelings of. I mean, I like it and I'll watch it again probably at some point in the future. Unlike Love Actually, if I can help it. I really,
Ringing endorsement. Okay.
I really don't like the Cameron Diaz storyline that much. Like, I wish the whole movie was about Kate Winslet's trip to LA and hanging out with Jack Black and the older gentleman. And just like, you know, it was just about a trip to LA over Christmas. And we also got to see her cottage at the same time and enjoy her life that way. Like, I wish this whole movie was just like her storyline, but it's not. Because I know, like, we've had this conversation about Cameron Diaz's acting in the past, and I kind of am in that camp where I feel like she's a bit over the top for me, and I don't really feel it when I'm watching her in this movie. And I'm not a huge fan of Jude Law either. And I feel like their story is so simplistic and boring, and there's nothing interesting happening there. And but yeah, I mean, overall, it's fine as a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue anything more than fine. Also, I'm not going to sit and try and oversell it for anybody.
Yeah. But I mean, I find Jack Black's character to be pretty charming through the whole movie. And, you know, like when they're sitting by the keyboards and singing together, that's a pretty charming moment.
I find watching the Iris kind of character arc to when she's sitting with Jasper. I wanted to call him, his real name is Rupert or something. But when she's sitting with Jasper, and she'd already had those great moments with the older filmmaker saying, you know, you're a leading lady, playing the part of the best friend, and she's cries about that. And I love her epiphany when she's just sitting with him and she realizes what she's been doing. I love that. I think that's a beautiful moment in a rom-com. You know, it's almost like self-referencing the rom-com because we talk about meet cute and all of those things. And I also like watching Jack Black go through the same sort of thing. Like, what have I been doing? Why am I going out with these girls that are just cruel to me? And here is this lovely woman standing right in front of me. Now I'm doing a Richard Curtis line from Notting Hill. I'm just a girl standing in front of you. But, you know, I find that, and I agree with the Cameron Diaz like this, and I know last time I kind of lost my breath when you said you didn't care. Sorry, Andrea Warner here. That you didn't care that Cameron Diaz couldn't cry, and that
I know. I still
you didn't
don't care
at all. Yeah. And I'm not saying that it was the greatest scene or epiphany, but I still felt very moved by the fact that there was a moment in this story where this woman, had an awakening. So
Yeah.
I like how it's supposed to be a holiday movie, but they kind of totally gloss over Christmas. Like
nobody really has Christmas.
Yeah, nobody has Christmas in the movie.
No, New Year's Eve. That's
At
kind
best,
of
it's a New Year's Eve movie.
Yeah, and like Joe was pointing out to me, he's like, Iris has 2 nieces who are children and a brother and 2 parents, and she just like takes off to LA, doesn't really tell anybody about her plans or anything. Like, she just doesn't care about her family at all and just leaves them behind at Christmas.
Well, she was pretty devastated.
When you think about it.
I do support this. Like, and I say that as someone with a lot of family. I feel like Iris has been in a position where she has never, ever, ever put herself first.
Right.
And if this is like her first moment of that, great.
Yeah.
Especially since she had been like, just sniffing gas out of the stove like earlier in the evening. Like, I think this is like a good solution to.
I think if she explains to the family, I was either going to do this or really put my head there, they would be like, glad you went to LA.
I hope you have a great time.
Yeah.
I think like, I mean, the things that really used to bother me about this movie, I've mostly calmed down about. I know I've talked about this a lot, about just like my internalized misogyny around certain types of character tropes for certain types of women in films, and some of those are tropes that are genuinely, I think it's fine for me to be upset about, and some of them are ones that I think are my internalized misogyny flaring up. And so I try really hard to be like more conscientious of that as I get older, because I don't want to be someone who's punishing a character or anybody that I love for like what is in my brain like a gendered human emotion, because like there shouldn't be gendered emotions, or behaviors or anything. So I think like that's like, I've made a lot of peace with Iris's character arc, but Cameron Diaz and Jude Law, and I will say I do find Jude Law a sexually compelling human being. He's very
attractive in this.
He's very orange in this movie, or at least this edition that I was seeing. So I
felt the same way. Did he have a suntan or something? Or?
Yeah, I didn't like it. He's never looked that orange to me before, but maybe it's a color correction on my TV, or like that's the print on, like, I don't know. Anyway, I love all his turtlenecks, and that's so that's good. But what I just could not get over is just like, these are such beautiful, basic people. They're so basic, like, and they keep saying the word complicated. Like, they throw the word complicated around, I think 17 times in the space of 4 minutes, like, where if you did a shot every time, you would be dead. And I would rather be dead than spend much more time with Cameron Diaz and Jude Law. Those characters, outside of the wonderful tent scene, which I do love, the tent scene, my heart
Those
bursts.
little girls are about the cutest thing you could possibly put in a movie.
Those little girls are so cute, but I also think like that is the moment where, instead of like us having to hear about how devastated she is and et cetera, like, where you finally, like, they finally let Cameron Diaz and Jude Law just have a quiet moment where they're not talking at each other. Like, they're trusting them to do like some decent acting with some good sound, like good like score, like a background scene music. Because otherwise, like, they try so hard to convince each other that they're both interesting and complicated, and they are not.
No, but they're not. But this is, I mean, I've thought about that before too, and of course I've also rationalized much in the same way you have, in when you like something. So I thought, this is not a movie about the journey of Jack Black and Jude Law.
No.
They're like kind of fully complete people in their way, but this is about the women's journey. This is about them recognizing things. So Jude is, I mean, basic is a bit unfair. I mean, he's a widower. And he's raising 2 daughters on his own.
I love how he has this huge speech about how he's a full-time dad. And then basically throughout the movie, like, he's just hanging out with Cameron Diaz. Like, what happened to his kids? Like, who's taking care of the kids right now? Are they just at their grandparents, like, every time he hangs out with Cameron Diaz?
Is it just a quick phone call? I'm feeling it. I'm going to have to do something right
Yeah,
now.
like-
And then he just goes off.
He's actually not a full-time dad because it seems like he doesn't like someone else.
Shots fired from AG.
Someone else. No, it just seems like someone else is taking care of his kids most of the time.
You know what they want you to do? This is the trope for making us believe in the full-time dad. Is when the children are asleep on the bed, he's still got papers he's looking through. We're like, oh, he was so busy all day cooking and cleaning and playing that he has to finish off his important glasses on the end of his nose work.
Yeah, the glasses on the end. Glasses on the end of the nose. Have they ever done such hard work for everyone to convey at like someone who is an editor or a writer?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. No, I know. That's our understanding of how much work he does, even though the parenting scenes where I found completely awkward, but they weren't his real kids, so it really should be awkward.
Well, I thought I thought the kids did such a good job of improvising. It seemed like a lot of things, and like I thought Jude tried like kind of hard to like, you know, sort of like respond to their little curiosities. Like when the one kid like kisses him on the cheek, and he you know, it's like it's awkward because you know that that's not his child. But like it feels like the kid maybe just went for it, and he was just like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah,
you know, like he's trying to like acknowledge her, but not engage her necessarily. And I thought that they like did a good. But yeah, I just like, oh my god, like can you? Like,
it's not that interesting. I'm gonna go with you because
chasing each other in a field after a large lunch.
Yeah, and her outfits were really bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, just like
those
where is
shoes,
she running?
the jackets. I don't know. Well, did she like stop at the airport and pick up coats or something at Zara? That's what it looked like. You know, I don't know what happened there. I wasn't. Yeah, it did not look good. And like, yeah, and Jude Law, what is he? He meets a beautiful woman who is smart and accomplished and funny and all these things. It's not a big stretch for him to fall in love with her. So in that way, he's kind of a little bit dull. We're supposed to be watching Amanda. Can she finally see that it's worth falling in love with someone, like a good person? That's what we're supposed to be seeing.
Yeah, and I just even like her breakup with her ex, like at the beginning. I mean, Ed Burns is always like, I mean, he's perfectly cast in that role, frankly, it seems. But like their problems, like when she's like, it's totally fine. It's totally normal that we haven't had sex in like whatever it's been, like 6 months, a year, whatever it was. And I was just like, look, I'm not going to tell you how often you should be having sex, but I do think that if you are in a relatively, you know, they've been together less than 3 years, and you're refusing to have sex, like that's. But then
later on, she says, "My boyfriend said I'm bad at it."
No, I know, but
so he sounds like a horrible, self-esteem crushing, awful man.
He's a monster. He's a monster. But I was also just like, who leads with like? She's like, this drunk man has just shown up at her door. He's threatened to pee on it. Goes to the bathroom. Does not wash his hands. There's no way he was able to wash his hands. He comes back out, and she's just like, you know, you're hot. We should probably smush. And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I think we should. We have
on
to.
Holiday.
But just a heads up, I'm bad at it?
Yeah,
Come on. She's
but
not
that's where
drunk.
her self-esteem is, though. That's the whole point of us. That she's so insecure about herself and everything.
I guess I just don't get the believability of her insecurity that much because of the fact that she is able to stand up for herself so well and kick her lying, cheating boyfriend out the door. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bit of we're getting very inconsistent messages about Amanda and what she is insecure about and what she's not secure. And like, it's just, I feel it's an inconsistent character portrait.
Okay.
I feel like I'm going to take Lisa's tip and watch that half of the movie on mute if I watch it again. Because really, all I'm interested in is the cottage, which I know I read that disappointingly was just built for the movie and then torn down. Of course. Yeah. But to me, like, it's not just the idyllic cottage, but like seeing those scenes of like the small town in England where she lives and like shopping on the streets and stuff. Like, I find that so Christmassy. And I love it.
Christmassy. Yeah. I am distressed that she doesn't walk the dog more. Also distressed that she just left her dog for a stranger to take care of.
Yes.
Because in the flight to Los Angeles to like England, that's a 9-hour flight.
Yeah,
And
was
it
no
takes a
one
few
else
hours
taking
to get
care
to-
of the dog
who's
during
looking
that
after this
time?
dog?
Yeah, I
Who's
know.
looking after the dog? Who's looking after the children?
Yeah, agreed.
Some
Agreed.
big questions from the
Well,
holiday.
and then sometimes you're like seeing the Iris's neighbor, that old man. Who's there? Like sometimes some people are walking with him. Sometimes they're not. He gets in his house. He doesn't even know where he is. Doesn't he have full-time care?
Well, that's the thing. Like,
It's a little bit worrisome.
It is worrisome because I would also just love to sort of spend a tiny bit of time thinking about the idea that within the space of 2 weeks, she can do enough water aerobics to get him free of his walker.
She's missed her calling, really, is what you're saying.
A walker is not such
Yeah.
a awful thing to have to use.
Yeah, but I guess the idea was supposed to be that all of us are, when someone cares about us, when someone takes some time for us, we blossom.
I guess, but do you grow a new spine?
Yes.
That seems,
Yes.
that's a very ableist.
Those waters in the pool were actually blessed, and
Oh my
he
God.
was
This
healed.
is actually a secret Jesus Christmas movie.
This is a
what you're
secret
saying.
Jesus
Okay,
Christmas. Yes, I
fair.
am. Yes.
Fair,
The healing
fair.
properties of Los Angeles have never
knew?
been
And the
more
Santa Ana
exaggerated.
winds.
And the Santa
Who
Ana
knew?
winds, all of it.
I mean, I will freely admit that yes, I see how the holiday has sort of grown. At least it has not. Its problematic elements have not grown. They've always just been there.
Yeah.
Love Actually's problematic elements have just skyrocketed through the Me Too movement, and I appreciate that, and I understand that completely.
I do find this last thing about how the holiday seems like it's getting a lot of attention this year and people are discovering it, and how it's it's a movie for the times, I guess. A holiday
Well, do you
movie
think
for
about
the
it though?
times.
When I was watching it this time, because I sent Andrea a note, I'm like a text. I went, this actually hit me a little bit more this year, and I think it was largely because for a certain group of us, and I will admit that there's a privilegedness to this, but that yearly vacations we take are really this opportunity to become different people somewhere. We have our daily lives in our homes, in our jobs, the things we do, and then we go away somewhere. And I'm not saying it's all what happens in Vegas or some tawdry thing like that. I'm just saying that when we go away on vacations, we become these ideal selves, right? Or we want to believe that that's what could happen, is that whatever is kind of holding us back in our daily life or some of the mistakes we've made, this opportunity you have to go somewhere else and see things and your brain changes. I think a lot of us do know that we need to do that every year. I mean, heck, we can't even you could maybe go across the street right now and it might be a bit dodgy. So I feel like this movie right now is kind of reinforcing those thoughts we had, which is, yes, you can become a different person. All you got to do is do a house swap.
I mean, I love the idea that a vacation is the time where I can finally lift my hoop skirt and just really, really become the new me.
But that's what we do. That's what a whole show like Fantasy Island was about, right? Or Love Boat, all of those shows, right? They were about this idea that you're going to go someplace different and you're going to become a different person. Nobody knows who you are back in your regular life, right? And you're new. So I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it. It's just a fun movie and it's Christmas and everyone's sad. And it
No,
ends
but now
happy.
I like to envision you on vacation as what is Lisa like on vacation?
Vacation Lisa is,
Yeah.
you know what? She unrolls her cuffs.
First of all, her name isn't Lisa.
Well, this is very exciting.
It's a lot of food for thought.
All right. Well, so AG, it's your first year. Do either of these films pop for you?
Love Actually could not just pop less for me.
Fizzle. It's a fizzle.
Yeah, it's like a balloon fizzling. And the holiday, it's just an acceptable holiday fare for me. It is fine.
It pops in its holiday way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, if you try to watch it in April, it's probably not going to do much.
And it's mostly just because I like that cottage. I like to think about that cottage once a year and think about how nice it would be to spend a week in that cottage.
It would be nice. It's also very much your height.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like
that's what I think every time I see her hit her head on going down the stairs. I'm like, that would not happen to me.
It's so cozy. It's beyond cozy.
Lisa, I feel like we know where you stand.
Every year it gets worse. And now I can't promise you next year if I'll just turn it off entirely. Like this year I learned the sound, but I don't know. Next year I might just come here and tell you that I just turned it off entirely.
You just have your own commentary running in your head while you're watching the film.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say in advance, I feel like that would be unfair since I do watch it at the holiday, but that's fine. I do take more pleasure in the holiday than you do in Love Actually. So I understand that. So yeah, I think like both are just real half pops for me at this point in my life. Everything that I love about Love Actually, I still deeply love, but everything that's gotten so much more difficult to love, it's like just a bad relative, you know, where you're just like, I understand that you exist, but I don't really need to acknowledge you,
or
engage with you. And the holiday, I
feel like that's a huge pivot.
That is, it's been pivoting more and more and more.
No, I think it's pivoted every year. Like I can't deny.
Like
that,
if we're on that Friends episode where he keeps yelling pivot, we're getting that couch up the stairs any year now.
But that's the thing. I think I will always love parts of it because I don't think that that's going to go away. Like I think it's the same like tolerance I have for like Sex in the City. I love Sex in the City, even though some of it is terrible and really awful and it has not aged well. I hate Sex in the City too, but it doesn't ruin the franchise for me. You know what I mean? So that's sort of how I feel about Love Actually. It's an old friend and I don't like aspects of its personality and I will actively tell them why those aspects are wrong, which probably makes me not a great friend, but whatever, I don't care. I'd rather have like an accountable friend than someone who just ignores what's wrong with me and still loves the other parts of me.
Fair.
So we love to leave our episodes on something we do recommend.
I already went ahead.
Usually wholeheartedly. Yes, you already went ahead. You're talking
with
about
the holiday season podcast, which I found on Spotify. And honestly, people, could there have been a better gift for those of us who love the holiday? Not only just the movie to watch again, but a whole podcast dedicated, and created by other holiday lovers.
I mean, that's really cool. And now I guess I have to start the Love Actually podcast next year.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Oh, no.
Kidding. I don't have the stomach for that. Plus, I'm like, then for sure, Richard Curtis would find out about all the terrible ways I've trashed him over the time. AG, what about you?
So you know how you're talking about like vacation, Lisa?
Yeah.
So this is the perfect show. It's for that. It's called The Flight Attendants. And it is
I
on.
want to see this.
I want to see that too.
It's so good. You'll be totally riveted. It's like a binge watch. It stars Kelly Cuoco as a flight attendant, an international flight attendant, and she's like she parties hard, and like that's kind of why she has a job. She just loves traveling and partying wherever she goes. And then she kind of has this incident one day where she like blacks out and then wakes up next to a murdered man. And basically the story is about her
trope. No, I was kidding.
her trying to figure out what happened. And Zosia Mamet is in it as well as Rosie Perez, and they're both just brilliant. And it's such a great show. And
that's awesome. I'm really excited. I feel like we've got some January content already on.
Yeah, we do.
Love it. I'm back in the thrall of Big Mouth. The animated show about hormones and preteens and teens. And, they continue to make some big swings, some real misses, and just like some overall like amazing moments of television happening in that show. And just like Maya Rudolph as a hormone monster is
Brilliant
like the greatest
casting.
gift.
Yeah.
Just like the greatest gift. It feels like the role she's been waiting for her whole life. She just digs into it with this deliciousness. And I also was not expecting for like this one couple to become like real centerpiece of the show and in like a really beautiful, gross way.
Huh.
Like it's a real delight to see these two 12-year-olds. You really have to put the age out of your mind.
Doesn't seem like a good idea. I feel like that's got people in a lot of trouble, Andrea.
Well, when it comes to animated characters.
And Love Actually.
And Love Actually, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Big Mouth, what a good time. It's been great. And I am also looking forward to the recast in season 5 of the Missy character. So far, Jenny Slate has been playing her. She is a Black mixed-race character. Jenny Slate was cast as the voice. There's been pushback since the very beginning about that, and they finally decided to recast the voice. And but they had already recorded season 4 and did not re-record it. So I'm looking forward to season 5 and seeing where they take Missy, because I think she'll really have a chance finally to come into her own. Even though she's already a very great character, she'll just have even more agency and more drive next season. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. The 6th annual Love Actually versus the Holiday conversation. I feel we were very, very mature.
I do too. I enjoyed having AG there. I think that was
glad.
A big movement.
I wasn't sure what I could bring because we've just talked around this so many times, and we had terrific guests on last year.
We change, people change, things change. We got to keep
World
up.
changes.
We're all changing.
Honestly, the context of watching both of these films in this year is different.
Yeah, it is. That's what changes. It is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening and for tuning in. And if this is your first Love Actually versus the Holiday, great. Welcome. If this is your 6th, I love you so much. Thank you.
I do.
Thank you so much. You can hang out with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. And you could rate and review us on iTunes. 5 stars.
5 stars.
And if you do listen to us on Spotify as well, cool. We've seen some people who listen tag us in the number of hours they've spent listening to the podcast on Spotify, and it's been really fun.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah,
that's nice.
That's really nice. Yeah. And thanks to Andrea Gin for being our producer, joining us each week and taking this journey
This
together.
was the hardest week so far.
This was the hardest week so far. I know. And we appreciate it. And we will celebrate soon.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Enjoy. Don't take a trip, though. Just stay close to home. some high advice for you.
Vaccine dreams for 2021.
Yoo-hoo!
Woo!